Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritually Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the astrological transits of October 20th to October 26th. This is going to be a weird, mind-boggling, weird, surreal week. It's going to be weird. And parts of the week by itself is a bit of a roller coaster. And the energy around the start of the week versus the end of the week is two very different vibrations, but we need to go through the beginning of the week to get to the end of the week. Now, I'm recording this on Saturday. Usually I would put these out on Sunday, but I'm actually going to put this one out a day early just because of where this vibration is going to be taking us. Because a lot of people over the course of the weekend building up to Monday, we've got this mix of either irritability or motivation, trying to get something done, so taking an action, or feeling like we need to defend something, we need to say something, we need to put something forward. The other option would be a tremendous amount of overthinking and or some level of commitment that is being built to. Everybody is in different scenarios. I know this because you guys are in my DMs. And you started real hard on my DMs like Thursday, Friday, when just part of that energy got engaged. And I warned last week, like the closer these two get together, there's going to be some mental energy, like it's going to have an impact. And remember how you feel at the first of this week. Remember it, put a pin in it, notate it, think about it, remember it. Because again, we're going to have 5 Mercury Mars conjunctions, 5 of them between now and April. This is just the first one. This is just the first one. And it is quite literally how we start this week. The first transit that we will go over on Monday is the Mercury Mars conjunction. We are building to it all weekend. It is the main part of the early morning of Monday, but we will still be in that vibration all week long as other transits are commencing. And it's the other transits that feel mind boggling. They just weird. We're going to have the new moon in Libra. And for a lot of people, I feel like if we're more on the pivotal area of the Mars Mercury, this is like we come to some kind of agreement and it's immediately a part of the new moon energy because the Mercury Mars conjunction will happen within a 24-hour span of the new moon in Libra. Like one is on Monday, the next one is on Tuesday. They are together. However, not everybody is going to have this in a positive light. Some people are going to have secrets come to the surface. They are going to have deep-seated fears and wounds and energies come to the surface and that are going to immediately be a part of something new, but not necessarily going off of that pivotal vibration. But now I'm thinking of more like chaotic vibration. And the thing is, we're talking about a new moon in Libra. So the thing is, we want to be fair. We're trying to put something back to a level playing field, but not everybody is going to agree what that level playing field is going to look like. And whenever it comes to the new moon in Libra, I will discuss this more in that actual video. There are layers to it that impact the next lunation, and that would be the full moon in Taurus. And again, I will put that more in perspective whenever I do the new moon video. Now, there's another energy that follows that new moon. And this is going to go exact on Wednesday. And that is whenever Neptune retrogrades back into Pisces, while simultaneously the sun moves into Scorpio. And this energy, this is the weird. This is the big part of the weird. It's one element of the weird. And when I was meditating on that day, as to these two energies changing signs simultaneously, it felt like static. I said this on the month ahead video too. It's like there's something about this energy that it feels like static, and trying to meditate on what's coming through, on what's going to happen, what's going to come to light. It was like trying to tune in a picture, but not being able to fully get the picture. I would get glimpses of pictures. Now, what I saw is not going to make sense to a lot of people. So I'm going to do a comparison to a movie. And that movie is even going to be referenced in the title of this episode just because of how it was coming through. There's a movie from the 90s called Pleasantville. Now that's going to make it sound like super calm, right? Dusty, that's a great name for a movie. Da-da-da-da. We'll see about that. In the movie, a brother and sister get absorbed into a television show from the 1950s. The sister wanted nothing to do with the TV show. The brother, this was his favorite TV show. And the thing about the movie is like the brother really emphasizes, hey, we need to go with the flow. We need to go and do whatever it would be the normal. We need to figure out the normal. He knew parts of the normal, but not all of it, because once you're in the show, like it's a very different, it's like once you're in the new world, once you're in a new environment, then you realize like what you didn't know before. That's the kind of thing. And his goal initially was to go with the flow and always do what everyone else is doing. The thing is, that wasn't possible. Once they got absorbed into the show, they started to introduce things that were out of canon, going off of a TV show concept there, out of the norm. And as more and more out of the norm got introduced, the environment of this black and white grade scale TV show started to change. Specifically, it started to zap into color. And there are very clear images of a guy driving up and seeing a bright red rose hanging off of a grayscale bush, or a tree bursting into very vibrant flames, but everything around it is still black and white. And people not knowing what to do in this energy. The only people that knew what to do were the ones from the other world, the ones that got zapped into the TV show, the brother and sister. And as more and more things got introduced, more and more people became colorful. They had their vibrant colors. But usually, to go into this vibrancy, you had to do something that was out of the norm for you. You notice last week I started to advise, I want you to do the opposite. This is a Hail Mary situation to help people understand what they need to do next in their healing process. Now, I know a lot of you were not able to pinpoint what that opposite was. If you look at the premise of the movie, just using this movie as the example, anytime certain people did the opposites of what their norm would have been, they shifted more into technicolor. They become vibrant. They became 4K, high definition, out of the grayscale. But they had to do something they had never done before. The brother and sister, the ones that got sucked into the TV, the brother had to be willing to stand up for himself and stand up for certain people that he loved. And that turned him to color, because he was very passive. And in real life, he didn't push forth certain things. And once he was willing to have that confidence, that turned him to color. The sister, she was kind of a hoe. But whenever she stopped doing ratchet things, putting it more in a modern term, she turned to color. People from the black and white universe, as they did things they had never done before, they too would turn to color. And it wasn't just one particular energy. Sometimes it had to do with confidence. Sometimes it had to do with letting go of the routine and trying something new. Sometimes it had to deal with stepping out of the box. Sometimes it had to do with doing the opposite of what you would normally do. And again, I've already given you advice to do exactly that. Do the opposite. That advice continues into this week. But there's a reason I do address going the opposite. There's something about the energy of Neptune moving backwards and Scorpio moving forward that feels like a jumble of sorts in reality. Both of these planets are moving into a Mars-ruled sign. Right after we had our Mercury-Mars conjunction. This feels like, in some ways, we are trying to do something new. Sun going into Scorpio. However, it does not feel like we can immediately step into the new, because it feels like something very surreal, very nostalgic, something from the past also comes to light and comes to the surface simultaneously. Now, for some people, that's going to be environment, i.e., welcome to Pleasantville. We're talking about the TV show, movie situation thing. For other people, it is going to be like once you step into something, you immediately feel how different the environment is. You immediately feel something that you've felt before. For some people, you're going to go into a situation, immediately run into someone from your past. And that's going to be the surreal, mind boggling. I thought you moved to a different state. I thought you were in a different world. I haven't thought about you in 30 years situations. And there's going to be, again, something very weird and something very surreal. But it's like once we go through this week, we step into something. And that's why I'm comparing it to this movie, because it feels like in some ways we kind of step into one version of a different reality, one version of a different scene, of a different world, of a different environment, one version of it. Now, in the show or in the movie, everything went revolved around the town of Pleasantville. By the end of the movie, which, i.e., by the end of certain transits throughout the rest of the year, so I might make a couple references to this movie over the course of the rest of the year, just to be clear. By the end of it, this town that only focused on its own town never had anything from the outside. There wasn't an outside of Pleasantville. By the end of it, there was an outside. And it was like by going to color, it connected to the rest of the world. Ultimately, there's a reason for going backwards. There's a reason for the surreal. There's a reason for that new vibration, this new functionality, this new attitude. There's a reason for this energy. And it seems like one stepping layer into, again, parts of what will be considered our new normal next year. But for us to really get into that new, we have to address that old environment, that old way of thinking, that old persona, that old surreal energy, the old surreal plan. And that starts this week. And if I add an extra layer to all of that, the other thing that starts this week in the middle of all of the fun is Mercury is going to go into shadow. That means a lot of the conversations, a lot of the surreal energy, a lot of the things that start this week, in some way, by the time we get to the end of November, we will be coming back to it. So, the layers of this week, the mental energy of this week, the decisions of this week, the arrivals of this week, the commitments of this week, the disruptions of this week, the fighting of this week. It is still Mars stuff, so we got to include that. So Mars is the god of war. He gonna do god of war things. But there's a heavy focus on the action, the reaction, in some ways, new actions we need to take, but in other ways, an old vibration coming to the surface simultaneously. And no matter how much we try to stick to the same old song and dance, the next few months are going to show us we cannot stay in grayscale. We will be shifting to technicolor of some sort. The technicolor would be our new environment and our new normal. But there's a lot of this energy that tells me, starting from this week forward, we are shifting backwards and forwards in a very surreal type of way. So the mental energy is going to be super fun. Super, super fun. All right, there's one more transit that's going to happen this week. I'm going to put more focus on it in the closing. So for the time being, let's get into the transits. Let's get into Monday, because again, as soon as we get into Monday, what are we doing? We are dealing with the Mercury-Mars conjunction. There it is. This is going to be the most exact between 1:29 and 2:24 a.m. Central Standard Time. We have been feeling this vibration, whether it is tension, whether it is frustration, since the 15th of October. That's when they hit their 3-degree range, and it started to impact our mental energy. It started to impact whether we were getting frustrated with something, whether we were getting very determined to do something, some mix of the two, the levels of overthinking, over planning, putting something together. Whatever this is, there is a buildup to it. If you've been dealing with this in a negative vibe, you've been dealing with the negative vibration all week going into Monday, or all weekend going into Monday. If you've been trying to put something together, put a plan of action that you're going to push through, and there's no other way around it. As soon as I make this decision, as soon as I make this announcement, this is what we're doing, that would not surprise me. Mercury Mars conjunction. Now, Mercury, of course, rules anything on your body in duality. Mercury rules your logical brain, all forms of communication, especially tangible forms of communication, therefore technology, handwritten, paperwork, anything along these lines. The Mars energy is action, drive, determination, but it can also be disruption, chaotic, fighting, and tension. I don't know how this is landing for everybody, but I am making everybody aware to be very observant to how you are feeling, how you are getting grabbed, what is going on. Because remember, this is the first of 5 for the next 6 months. Good Lord. Okay. Mercury Mars conjunction. I have beat this transit up. I'm not going to do it anymore. After this transit, though, what's interesting is the rest of the day, there ain't a whole lot going on. So, whatever this is what takes up our day. The decision, the disruption, the things that we are saying, the things that we are doing, the arrival of certain paperwork, the filing of certain paperwork, whatever it is, this is absorbing our entire day in so many ways. We don't get into any more transits until the evening time, and they're really going to happen like right before midnight. So I'm just bumping this to 11:30 because that's going to encompass the next 2 simultaneously. Between 10:30 p.m. on the 20th, which you see that right here, the moon is going to go through its square from Jupiter. So you can see this right here, 10:30 to 12:30 on the 21st. Between 11 p.m. on the 20th and 1 a.m. on the 21st, the moon will also go through this opposition to Chiron, really activating this Jupiter Chiron square. We're going to talk more about this in the closing. I put so much emphasis on the way the reality stuff was going to happen in the beginning that I'll do this in layer of energy in the closing, just to be clear. But the moon hitting this opposition to Chiron, the square to Jupiter, this is actually like adding an extra layer to whatever happened on Friday, October 17th, to the energy, because we're building into a new moon. The new moon's actually going to perfect Tuesday morning, but we're in that vibration no matter what. So there is something about whatever was coming to light, whatever was coming to focus, whatever solutions, resolutions, whatever teachings that we were going through over the weekend that probably was a part of that overthinking energy, or whatever decisions that have come through where we need certain solutions, or we're trying to figure out how to fix something and overcome a wound. And that's going to be a big part of the topic again at the closing. This is activating parts of it and feeding into the new moon energy. Again, the moon square from Jupiter, the moon opposition from Chiron. It starts on the 20th. It continues into the 21st. So we have something about, again, a solution, how we help people, the best way for healing, the best way of moving something forward, somewhere between Monday evening and Tuesday morning, just in that human effect. There is an activation here. The Chiron Jupiter square is not exact. It'll actually go exact on the 23rd, but it gives an emphasis, and it tells us that this Chiron Jupiter square is feeding into this new moon energy around Libra. Okay, keeping this going. We're going to talk about this new moon in Libra now. Oh, keeping it going between roughly around 7:30 a.m. It's the most exact. Actually, it's 7:25, but I got it at 7:30. That's close enough. Here is our new moon in Libra. Now, again, this is a new moon in Venus' sign. Venus is in Libra. A lot of this energy feels like it's a bit of a carryover from the weekend. There's something about doing the opposite, accepting certain kinds of responsibility, or doing something a little bit different as a way to take a risk. And whatever risk energy that we were kind of talking about last week is kind of feeding into this new moon. Because again, there's something that we're wanting to put forward. If we've been dealing with the frustration of something, then that can be a part of what's moving forward. But it feels like very quickly something is solidifying into the new. And this again is a new moon in Libra. We're trying to do something that is fair for everybody. I will do more of this on its own individual episode, so I'm not going to harp on this for too long. So, but the new moon's energy is going to be felt the most exact Tuesday morning between 6:30 and 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. So you can see that right here. Now, a couple hours later at 10:43 a.m. Central Standard Time, I'm just bumping this to 11:30. At 10:43 again, the moon is going to go into Scorpio. Now, what's interesting is having that late degree new moon and then having the moon immediately go into Scorpio. For a lot of people, that connection, that agreement, that energy around the Mercury Mars conjunction, it's feeding into that new moon. And then as soon as that new moon perfects, the moon is coming into Scorpio. It's coming into Mars's sign. There is something about that new energy where we are taking the next layer into action. It is pushing some things forward. Now, the thing about the moon being in Scorpio is not everybody is going to be happy about the situation. And if people have reservations, if people have frustrations, if people have deep-seated wounds or some level of instigation down below that they don't want to feed into, it's going to come through while the moon is in Scorpio. So over the next 2 days, there can be some of those insecurities finding their way to the surface, finding their way to the top. And there can be something about the disruption with Mercury Mars that also plays into the timeline of the moon in Scorpio, where we have extra layers, extra round, extra input, extra people involved with whatever chaotic or pivotal disruption you felt during the exact Mercury Mars conjunction. Okay, let's keep this going. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. It's an intense, interesting weekend. We're gonna continue. It's not the weekend. Sorry. The moon is now in Scorpio. And as soon as the moon goes into Scorpio, it starts to perfect its square to Pluto. Now, this is actually going to be felt the most exact around this 1:30 time frame. Here's the moon, 1 degree, 23 minutes. And here's Pluto, 1 degree, 22. I said it's more exact around here. This is a challenge in some ways. This is a push to change something in others. This is a recognition in change in another. Some of us, we're going to be the Pluto person. We're going to be making a change. We're going to be talking about our fear. We're going to be talking about a power struggle. We're going to be talking about something that we've recently overcome. Some of us are going to be the moon in this situation. We are going to recognize a change, recognize a shift, recognize something that can trigger fear. Because sometimes if you see something in another person that has changed, but you don't agree with it, it can trigger insecurities. The moon in Scorpio is more likely to have insecurities. If you are insecure about somebody else's change, you need to be reflective as to why you are feeling insecurity in that moment. It might take a while for that to make sense, but it is a big part of that vibration. So as soon as the moon is in Scorpio, it's in this triggered energy going through that square to Pluto. This can also give preview as to what the Sun Pluto is going to look like a few days later. So a few days after this. So kind of take note of how you're feeling as the day progresses on the 21st, because there's just a lot of layers to it. And again, not everybody is going to like the new that is coming through over these next few days. Now, after the moon hits the square to Pluto, there ain't a whole lot going on. There's really not. We've got the wind down of Neptune right now, but it hasn't changed signs yet. We're going to have this finalizing energy of the sun in Libra. So it feels like in some ways we're about to wrap something up, or we're about to get something done, or some of us are going to be filled with some anticipation that something or someone is about to be there. So it's really kind of interesting how this is going to play through. But there's a lot of emphasis on Mars energy over this 24-hour period, even though we just had a new moon in Libra, which is Venus's sign. A lot of the energy starts to go into the Mars vibration. So we're going to keep it going. We're going to get into now the 22nd And the two transits that are happening are specifically the outer planet ones moving signs. That's really the only thing to Wednesday. At 4:51 a.m., I got this now at 5:30, Neptune is going to retrograde from Aries back into Pisces. And over the course of the next 3 months, because he's going to stay here until the end of January, there's unfinished business, there's final moments of resolution, there's final things that need to get addressed from the previous cycle, from whatever Neptune and Pisces represented for you, that are now coming to the surface. This is a really interesting energy, and I feel like it's the Neptune part of the vibration as to why I see static, because Neptune does not like to be seen clearly. And there's going to be some things that it's not going to make sense why we're going back, or why we're feeling a certain way, or why we're thinking back on something, or why our mind is just because that's what I'm anticipating. We've dealt with Neptune changing signs back in the springtime. This was the weekend of March 29th, 30th time frame. But we also had a Mercury retrograde then. We had a Venus retrograde then. We had an eclipse in Aries that weekend. It was a very intense weekend. And then Neptune was changing signs simultaneously. There's something that can go back to that March timeframe, but there's stuff that can go back even further. So I'm not just going with one timeline. But the energy around Neptune changing signs is not like Uranus and Pluto or Saturn or any of the others. So this one is going to impact the mind, and it's going to have different types of like flooding, foggy, obnoxious types of vibration. And this is a part of why I'm saying, like, it feels like a time warp of being sucked into a television or sucked into a 1950s show. Like, that's why I did the comparison to Pleasantville. Neptune's doing something to us. I'm telling you. Okay. Now, as the day progresses, again, there's no other direct transits except for the next planet changing signs. That's going to happen the most exact at 10:51 p.m. I'm bumping this now to 11:30, and the sun is now in Scorpio. So over the course of Wednesday, one planet left a Mars ruled sign, and that is Neptune leaving Aries. By the evening time, the sun has moved into the Mars ruled sign. And now we have some extra energy and some extra vibration of something newly arriving that can be disruptive. We can have somebody leaving, letting something go, going back somewhere. I have to go back. I got to go back home. I got to go. We can have an energy where it feels like someone is leaving in this most surreal way, with Neptune having left Aries. But at the same time, we have the sun going into Scorpio. So this feels like a very weird nostalgic level of arrival, because we have to go back to something while simultaneously going into something new, being the new part of the old. It's very interesting. Okay. Now, after the sun goes into Scorpio, again, this is happening real late in the evening time. This is the only thing that we're dealing with on Wednesday, but I really do feel like the longevity of how the hours feel that day, it's going to bring up a lot of insecurities. It's going to bring up a lot of things from the past. It's going to bring up some old wounds. It's going to bring up some triggers. And as we go into the 23rd, hello, there's the 23rd. We're now on Thursday. There's a lot more going on, just to be clear. And I feel like whatever we could be feeling on Wednesday, we're more likely to act upon in some way on Thursday, given the way the transits are kind of unfolding. So we're going to keep this going. Between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, I got this now at 6:30, the moon is going to make a conjunction to Mars. You can see this right here, moon conjunct Mars. This can be an accident. I'm not going to even lie about that. This can be the news that leads to something disruptive. This can be some level of chaotic disruption or pivotal disruption, however disruption works for you, because it's different for everybody. There can be some kind of news that feels intense. It feels infuriating. It feels frustrating. For other people, it is going to be something about a desire, but it's like a hidden desire that we're willing to talk about, work on, act upon, coming through in some way. And yes, I know it's early in the morning, but this isn't the only transit going on. But that moon Mars energy feels very, very connected to whatever Mercury Mars was doing a few days before. And that is, it was again exact right as we started this episode with Monday. Okay, keep going. Between 9 and 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to make a conjunction to Mercury. This is news, this is communication, this is a meeting, this is documentation. There's some extra level of new in the vibration, finding out someone has left someplace, finding out somebody new has come in, finding out we're in some level of transition, finding out this extra layer of pivotal agreements or action that we've already dealt with. Like it feels like an extra layer to whatever was a part of the weekend going into Monday early morning time frame. Okay. As we continue between 11:30 and 1:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, so I'm bumping this just a few more hours. This is whenever Jupiter is going to trine the moon. Now, this doesn't feel like any of the other stuff. But what I will say is Neptune, again, just retrograded back into Pisces. Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces. Jupiter is the traditional. And there can be some additional support that starts to come through in this energy where we're looking at what's going on with another person. We're finding out someone has left something behind. We're finding out somebody has just come back. We're finding out some additional layers in the vibration that we did not know. There's so much of this Thursday energy, Wednesday, Thursday, that I'm so blocked on. And I'm realizing it in my notes just now. So I'm going to wing this next part. I did not write down the next two transits that we're going to talk about, but I still need to bring them up. So we're going to keep it going. As the day is going to progress, the moon is actually going to go through a trine with Saturn. This looks like it's the most exact between 2:30 and 3:30. I'm sorry, 2:30 and 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And in the midst of this going exact, so it's like this moon trine to Saturn, there is an action, moon in Mars. There is a hidden desire. There is a hidden discrepancy. There is something that has been recently brought to the surface that needs to be looked at from the point of view of the elder, from an authority figure, that needs some additional levels of addressing, or it needs some additional levels of guidance. The moon hitting the trine to Saturn. Now, the next transit I did actually write down, it's still going to be a part of the same timeline. This goes exact from 4:01 p.m. to 6:19 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm just putting this now at 5:30. And this is where Chiron will go through its exact square to Jupiter. Now, this is the first in the series of three. Now, the reason I want to talk about these in the closing is because the series of three is going to be very, very spread out. But Chiron being in the higher authority and being in Mars' sign, there is an action, so to speak, about resolutions, about healing something, about finding a way to overcome something that is either being pressed upon the teacher, but it's like an old wound being pressed upon the teacher, the doctor, the guru, the teacher, Jupiter's energy, or it is an old solution. This is the way we used to do it, hitting that square to Jupiter. But the energy around the moon and everything else going on in Scorpio doesn't mean that everybody is going to like what it feels like to hear about what we've done in the past to make something work. So we're going to keep this going. This is the next one that I did not write down. And that is whenever the moon hits the trine to Neptune. This is going to go the most exact really between, looks like 10 p.m. to, we'll go 12:30 in the next day. So just to be clear about that, here we have the moon going through its trine to Neptune. But as soon as it's going into this, there's something about the past. There's something about the effects. Neptune can be about the effects of something. It can be about the symptoms of flooding, flushing, burning in the symptoms. I wouldn't normally say that, but since Neptune just changed signs, there can be some symptoms that people are feeling, like their body is feeling weird, their body's feeling sluggish, or we're suddenly like retaining waters. Like I feel stiff, I feel heavy, I feel weird, I feel clouded, my stomach is puffy, I'm puffy, like I feel weird. And the thing is like this is feeding into some of the other transits that are going to take us forward. At 11:19 p.m., the moon is going to go into Sagittarius, but the moon is going to go into Sagittarius still in that trine to Neptune, and then immediately hitting an opposition to Uranus. As soon as the moon goes into Sag, there's something kind of reactive, but again, it's not an easy reaction. It's kind of weird. Now, what I think is interesting is once the moon goes into Sagittarius, Chiron is in that square to Jupiter. And it feels like the moon going through Jupiter's sign is bringing more to the surface. It's bringing more to light in regards to whatever the solution is between Chiron and Jupiter, whatever the wound is between Chiron and Jupiter, whatever the outcome of something needs to be. Sorry, I had a hiccup right there. Between Chiron and Jupiter, but it feels like whatever the moon in Sagittarius is going to represent has a lot to do with Jupiter in Cancer. And you got to remember, every time the moon goes through either Sagittarius or Pisces, in this case, we're talking about Sagittarius, the moon and Jupiter are in mutual reception. They're in each other's signs, but they're not seeing eye to eye, specifically whenever the moon is in Sagittarius. So it's like we can have unexpected outcomes, unexpected support, unexpected solutions, unexpected triggers. I'm going to say triggers only because, again, Neptune did just change signs and Neptune is influencing this immediate energy of something coming to the surface, a reaction to something that we were not anticipating. But as soon as it comes to the surface, it is immediately a part of our focus once the moon is in Sagittarius. So again, I'm going to cover more of that Chiron Jupiter in the closing. We're going to keep going into the transits. The moon is now in Sagittarius. It starts at 11:19 p.m. on Thursday. The trine with Neptune is still very, very strong. It goes into the next day, which is, of course, the 24th, which is Friday. And then that moon is still very tightly in that opposition to Uranus. It's actually just exact right here in this 12:30 time spot. Now, this is still a very busy moon. We're not done with anything. But as soon as the moon goes into Sagittarius and hits that opposition to Uranus, there is something that is unexpected. There is something that is not going to plan. There is something that we were not ready to focus on. There can be something that is very, very exciting for some people. There's going to be something that is just kind of out of the box and out of the norm for others. And it kind of really depends on how the last few days have gone feeding into this energy. So the moon hits the opposition to Uranus, but remember, Jupiter's still in that exact square to Chiron. So be very clear of the healing, if that's a part of the conversation. Be very clear of the wound, if that's a part of the conversation. The solution, if that's a part of the conversation, or the opposite behavior that we committed to the week before, the risk of taking the opposite behavior the week before. All right, now we're going to continue. Between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. Central Standard Time, I got this now at 2:30, the moon in Sagittarius is going to hit this sextile to Pluto. This is not very heavy, but it can be, it doesn't have to be heavy. It can be about like what kind of fear is setting in, or having someone tell you something that is kind of triggering, or having somebody tell you something that allows for support in regards to change or overcoming something or transforming something. The reason I think this part is really interesting, and I'm not too heavy with the moon's sextile to Pluto, is the fact that the sun is actually building its square to Pluto. And this is going to go exact by the morning time. So we're just a few hours before, and I feel like that's going to be the more dominant of the energy. So we're going to bump this forward to 8:30 a.m. And that's whenever you're going to see this exact. Here's the sun, 1 degrees, 23 minutes. Here's Pluto, 1 degrees, 23. In this vibration, Pluto is newly direct, and the sun is now coming into a square, but the sun is in Pluto's sign. So there's something that we must identify, but we not only identify it in another person, we have to identify it in ourselves. We have to give support sometimes, like I've gone through this level of healing and change. You can do it too. This is how we turn it around. This is how we transform. This is how we take something forward. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is a heavy energy. And considering some of the other mental energies of the week, it can be one extra layer that can include some vibration of frustration, agitation, not seeing eye to eye, not really liking something. And there can also be a very big push in this energy, considering the sun is hitting that square to Pluto, but it's a push to change something. It's a push to overcome something. And whatever the triggering energy can be, it's still a part of something that is necessary in our healing process, given that Chiron Jupiter is still very, very active. Okay, we're going to keep this going. As we bump through the rest of the morning, the other thing that we've got going on is Jupiter is going to go through its exact trine to Mercury. Now, Mercury is seeing, and in a quincunx to Chiron, it's not actually addressing Chiron. It's only getting that energy from Jupiter. So it's like hearing something from the doctor, the guru, the teacher in regards to how we process something forward, how we're going to take something forward, how we're going to do something, and then not necessarily understanding their influence, where they're coming from, why they seem triggered, if they seem triggered, why they think this is a good idea. It's kind of a very questioning energy because you don't know the other side as to what gave them this solution. Some people are going to get some type of addressing or direction of how to take something forward, whether that's in a learning aspect, whether that's in a medical aspect, in a healing aspect, in a hopeful aspect, how to take something forward, not knowing that it might hurt someone else's feelings, even though that's not our intention. It's just knowing that the best way forward is, again, not going to make everyone the happiest. And considering that Sun Pluto square is still very, very heavy in this energy, not everybody is going to like the things that are being said and what's going on. A lot of people are going to be very stuck in old ways. Like, this is the way we used to do it. This is the way we've always done it. But that is not always the way that we need to do things moving forward. We need to do something different. We need to do the opposite. We need to do changes. A lot of this week is showing us why the opposite has been necessary. Okay. We're in that Mercury trine to Jupiter energy all day long. We're in that Sun square Pluto energy all day long. The moon, of course, is going to be in Sagittarius all day. There's no more direct transits to Friday on the 24th. We're now going to move into the 25th. The moon is still going to be in Sag all day long. Our first transit is actually going to happen between 3 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. And I got this now at 3:30. And this is where Venus, 14 degrees, 15 minutes, is going to go through a sextile to the moon. This is closer around the 4 a.m. mark, but not exact. These two planets are kind of moving a little bit faster, so I gave a little bit of a larger window. But this is not heavy energy. This is talking about the appearance of something, giving guidance of how to make something taste better, how to make something look better, how to work through something, giving that attaboy energy of like, oh, it's not going to be that bad. I promise it'll come together in ways that you can't even imagine. You just got to give it some time. You just got to trust the process. You just got to wait. You just got to hope. There is something here that can be very, very supportive. Now, are we all getting supportive conversations from our friends in that 3 o'clock time span? No, not really. The human effect is some of us are going to be feeling a little bit more hopeful when we wake up on Saturday morning. And you might be doing like an early morning brunch or an early morning phone call with someone, talking about how we feel, and just, again, needing that level of support, not super heavy energy. We're going to keep this going until the afternoon. Put this at 4:30. And between 4:17 and 4:20 p.m., so that's why I'm just going to go with this afternoon time span, Mercury in Scorpio is going to make its first trine to Saturn. Please note that I said the first. There will be a series of 3 of these. I'm not getting too heavy on the dates of like, this one's going to feed to this and this and this. I'm actually going to do a Mercury retrograde video here in the next week, and I'll put all those dates together. But this is a trine between Mercury and Saturn. Now, Mercury is in the higher authority. Mercury is direct right now. This is telling an authority figure. This is telling the responsible party. This is giving some ideas about who's going to be responsible for what, or where we don't want certain things to continue anymore, or where we're having an issue with something, but we're not immediately addressing the issue. We're just kind of growling. We're just kind of talking about stuff. We're talking it out with the elder. We're talking about something with the adultier adult. We're getting guidance. We're talking about, again, how we're going to put something forward in like that responsible tone. Who's going to be taking care of what, who's going to be overseeing certain things, with an idea that this is going to be the long haul. It's not going to be the long haul. By, again, the time we get to the end of November going into December, we are going to know that it is not the long haul, but there is still like this first addressing of a plan of like, this is how I want to do something. And the thing is whoever you tell might be a little resistant to that change. Again, knowing that we're going to have some layers to this later on. that it feels like we've got one plan of action that ultimately will not continue, but that doesn't mean that we're not stating the plan right here, because in a lot of ways we are. Okay. Now, when it comes to Saturday, there's not a whole lot else going on. We've got this trine between Mercury and Saturn that is going exact in the afternoon. We're in this vibration all day long. Mercury is kind of activating a grand trine because it's still decently within degrees of Jupiter. It's going into the trine with Saturn. So it's kind of activating this emotional, watery, grand trine energy of like where we want to put considerations, where we want to help certain people, what we want to put forward. But there might not be a whole lot of people that can stick to certain agreements in this energy or can stick to certain plans. And if you have a conversation with somebody thinking that everything's going to come together a certain way, you can feel hesitancy. And if you're feeling hesitancy, then we are trying to do something before we're meant to do it. If you are hesitating when somebody else is telling you a plan, then we're trying to do something before we're meant to do it. Some part of these conversations are not going to stick. Have fun with that. Okay, keep it going. Oh, we're going to get into the 26th. We're going to get into Sunday. We're now in Sunday. And right after we go into Sunday, the moon is going to hit a trine to Chiron. Now, this is going to be felt the most exact between midnight and 2 a.m. I've got it at 1:30. Here's the moon, 24:49, going through its trine to Chiron. We're separating from it right here. It was more exact, like right around that 1 a.m. mark. But here's Chiron, 24 degrees, 28 minutes. This is interesting because the moon is in Jupiter's sign. These two are again in mutual reception. While the moon is going through this trine to Chiron, there can be something about a solution, something about an outcome, something about a wound, something about what we're trying to put forward, that it's not that we don't want to agree, it's that not all parties are here, so it's making it hard to agree. I don't want to agree to something blindly. I want everybody on the same page. And there is something about that just right here. Is like, it sounds like the two of us can figure something out, but I need to hear it from them. I need to talk to them. I need to be a part of this with another person, seeing something with another person. Now, that's going to be a little bit hard for some people to understand, but it seems like a necessary part of the situation or a necessary part of something. Sometimes you can get the same advice from somebody about how to fix something that you got from someone else. And like, these two people don't even know each other. And that can be another way that this kind of comes through. It's like, if you try this, yeah, somebody else just told me to do that. Well, that's a pattern. You're starting to hear it more from more than one person. Then you should probably listen to all this advice, because that's probably the way that we need to go. And you can get the advice of something from someone that knows nothing about the other person. It's just like a very synastry type things, or synchronistic. That's not synastry, synchronistic type of thing. Not super heavy, meant to be understanding, knowing that one party has nothing to do with the other. Okay, let's keep it going. Between 3 and 5 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to go through a square with Saturn. Now, this is interesting because we haven't had a whole lot of like moon and Sag square Saturns, because we took a break of that over the summer. While Saturn was in Aries, we had a bit of a break, but now we're kind of reviving an energy that we were dealing with all last year going into springtime. And that is, every time the moon is in Sag, it goes through a square to Saturn, then a square to Neptune before going into Saturn's signs. So there's something about this moon hitting the square to Saturn about a questioning, a direction, a frustration of something with the doctor, not the doctor, the elder, the adultier adult, who's in charge, the responsibility of something, addressing something with the boss, putting something forward, but not noting that this time there might be some haziness, there might be some confusion, there might be some extra levels and extra layers to this that we are not seeing clearly. Telling something to the boss or telling something to the elder, or having the elder tell us we're not feeling right. Something about this feels off. Something about this feels weird. I don't like the effects of something. Be aware of that. The moon is going to square Saturn between 3 and 5 a.m. As we continue, the moon will hit the square to Neptune. That is going to go the most exact between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. And that's going to be really interesting because while the moon is going through this square to Neptune, it will also change signs. At 11:54, the moon will go into Capricorn. But we're going to talk about this moon square Neptune because I feel like this is going to have that haziness. This is going to have the confusion. This is going to have that surreal. We're going to have a hard time focusing. We're going to have a hard time putting something forward. There's going to be some questioning about what we're not seeing clearly. And then again, that moon is going to go into Capricorn and we're going to be kind of confused. It's going to be hazy, but it's going to be hazy about like, what's the next responsible step? Where do we need to focus our energy? Where are we going to take something from here? The moon in Capricorn wants to be productive. It wants to be responsible. It doesn't want to do anything fun until we've actually done something productive. And there's something very wishy-washy about the moon going into Capricorn this time. I'm just like, whoa, I don't want to be responsible for that. I didn't even know I was going to be in charge. I thought I was just coming to a kid's party. And now I'm hosting something. Now I'm over here cooking on the grill. Now I'm over here cutting the cake. How did I get put in charge? And it's like this confusing, weird vibration once the moon goes into Capricorn, because as soon as it goes in, it's still in that square from Neptune. Now, all in all, the moon in Capricorn is not going to be bad. It's just starting off in a weird, really weird funk. It's starting off with a weird vibration. And some of us are going to be having to go take care of something from the past once the moon goes into Capricorn that we didn't know we were going to have to take care of. We don't know that there's something going on with grandpa. We didn't know that there's been this weird energy. We don't know what we don't know because we've been so focused on one thing, something else pops up. And it's just not what we were anticipating. But the thing is, as soon as the moon goes into Capricorn, like that becomes our focus. What are we trying to handle? What are we trying to deal with? What are we trying to put together now that the moon is in Capricorn? It's a very weird energy. It's very surreal. It can be good for spiritual energy, but there's going to be a lot of confusion as to like where we're going, how we got here, and what we're doing next, just to be clear. Okay. As the day progresses, there's only one other transit, and it's not a super heavy one. It's going to happen in the evening time between 6:30 and 8:30 p.m. I've got it now at 7:30, and this is where the sun in Scorpio is going to hit a sextile to the moon. By the time we get to the evening time, the surrealness, the confusing, the things that we're not clear about, the things that we didn't know we were going to do, the things that kind of took us back to an old vibration, took us back to an old energy. By then, we're a little bit more ready to take something forward. We're a little bit more clear on something. The sun kind of can shed light, quite literally shed light on something that we need to start to address, that's starting to hit a wall, that's starting to change, that needs to have a different focus put on it over the course of the next month. Now, the reason I'm saying that is because now the moon is in Capricorn. It's in Saturn signs. And over the course of the next month, Saturn is going to end its retrograde. So some of that energy around that Saturnian side is letting us know, again, some of the things that we're going to be changing, but it's just the first realm, the first round of that energy. It's not an immediate vibration around change. It's just an awareness of it. And that's what's going to be very, very interesting. Now, Chiron's square to Jupiter. I compared this energy to previous Chiron Jupiter squares. And the last time we had one where Chiron was in the higher authority went back all the way to about 2012. Now, I am not doing a full comparison of 2012 to now because we were in different signs. It was a different vibration. There can be some similarities, especially if you have natal placements in the early areas of Gemini or Pisces, where you might feel some similarities to that time frame, but you would have to have very specific placements for that to be a continuation or a repeat of that pattern. Chiron square to Jupiter will happen over a series of 3. This is the first one this week. The next one that will occur will actually be the week of Christmas. It's most exact. I think it was December 21st. And the third and final one will actually not go exact until July of next year. That's a lot. It's a long time frame. What's interesting to me about the first two sets is they're going to happen between Cancer and Aries. The third and final one will be whenever Chiron moves into Taurus and Jupiter moves into Leo. And it means whatever we are trying to solve, whatever things from the past are coming through right now, whatever starts to come through from this point forward, it's a necessary part of the old vibration that we need to heal, that we need to learn the lessons from. Now, and some of us, if we're in the support positions like me, where you're teaching the lessons to certain people in a whole different way of how we heal something, how we overcome a wound, how we overcome the trauma, how we finally let something go. This timeline, especially through the rest of the year, starting from this week, because of Jupiter Chiron, because of Mercury Mars, because of the new moon in Libra, and because of Mercury going into shadow. So 4 reasons, starting from this week, are going to give layers as to what we need to let go of, what we need to move away from, what we need to do differently. If you've already done the different thing, that is, somebody contacted you and you would normally like fall over yourself. Oh my God, he texts me. Oh my God, how long has it been? Oh my God, I miss this person. And then some part of you goes, meh, never mind. That's the opposite. If you would normally bend over backwards to help your family and now something else is going on and you sit there and you go, not my pig, not my farm, not my monkeys, not my circus, not my problem. No, that is doing the opposite. And so much of us, to finally overcome the wound, we have to do something different. And if you did that going through last week or this week, you do that, then you're actually helping yourself set up for this future energy. If you could not do the opposite, or you didn't figure out what the opposite plan of action was for you, if you did something different, or you did the normal thing that you would always do, you always help, you always stood up for someone, you always did the other thing, you're staying in the pattern of the normal. You're staying in the pattern of the grayscale, going back to Pleasantville now. The thing about part of that movie is that once the color shift started to happen, is there was a big part of town that, no, I don't like change. And there's a lot of people, you don't like change. Fixed signs, you don't like change. I'm aware. However, as things progress, there were some parts of the change that became inevitable. And there were some parts of doing something different, doing something that was not the norm, doing something out of the box that finally allowed for healing, doing something the opposite finally allowed for healing. How soon you commit to opposite energy is going to be different for everyone. If you would normally give everything to your partner, to your kids, to your family members, the way that you break the pattern is to finally put yourself first. Committing yourself to going back to school, committing yourself to starting the business, committing yourself to doing something differently. Does everybody like you picking you over them? Absolutely not. There are going to be some people that are going to have a problem with it. That doesn't mean you're wrong. So much of the next few months is about understanding the need to choose another path. For some of us, we're going to again be that support person and helping someone else choose the other path, helping them recognize the need to go in a different direction, because that is the only way we can commit to some level of new long-term healing solution vibration. And that's a big thing that's coming through between Chiron and Jupiter, because as much as Jupiter is the doctor, the guru, the teacher, the other thing Jupiter is about mass and masses. A lot of the unfinished business that we will deal with throughout the rest of the year takes place between, at first, Scorpio and Pisces, but by the end of it, Sagittarius and Pisces. Sagittarius and Pisces are both ruled by Jupiter. So much of where we need to heal of what we need to overcome, of where we need to do different things, of where we need to try something different, of where we need to do the opposite is going to be key in a big portion of our healing process throughout the rest of the year. How soon you commit to doing the opposite will be different for everyone. But once we commit to the opposite, it's going to be a lot like Pleasantville. It's going to be like going from a timeline of stuck in the mundane grayscale to boom, color, the pops of color. Recognize that need for the new, recognize the need for the transition, and know that it's going to take the next 2 to 3 months before that really finds a way to the surface. There's going to be tests in this vibration. And this week is starting to set the stage of what will continue and what won't going into 2026. Because remember, Mercury enters shadow this week, babies, in the middle of that time warpy, weird Neptune going back into Pisces energy. And I really feel like a lot of people are going to physically feel, whether it's in their mental energy, their physical, flu-like, whatever, people are going to feel that vibration. And whatever happens Wednesday, because that's whenever the two planets change signs, that feels like a time jump. That feels like walking into another world. That feels like walking into another timeline in so many ways. But we only have to go backwards for so long. Unfinished business will be wrapped up by the time we get into the start of the new year. So again, as soon as you start to commit to doing some of the opposite things and no longer allowing certain people to hurt you the way that they have in the past, is the best way forward. There is a new normal coming. And how soon you can commit to that, how soon you can let go of the people that hold you back, is all up to you. Okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.